As a soldier, I've served on 2 deployments to the Middle East. Every single day I was confronted with the cost of these regime change wars. These regime change wars have been carried out under the guise of humanitarian cause in countries like Syria. We feel for the suffering of the Syrian people, but the reality we are facing here is that since the United States started waging a covert regime change war in Syria, starting in 2011, their suffering has not decreased, it has increased, in addition to the fact that our enemy, Al-Qaeda, that attacked us on 9/11 is stronger now in Syria than they ever were before. It is important for our country to stop spending trillions of dollars on these regime change wars, which does not serve the people in these countries, nor does it serve our interests and our security. Leaders in both parties think that we should be acting as the policemen of the world, and that we should continue to go around overthrowing and toppling dictators or countries who we don't like. These wars are causing more suffering and costing us, the American people, trillions of dollars in the process. Like so many of you, it is painful and disheartening to see how much divisiveness is being fomented by those who wish to tear us apart. We have people in positions of power who are not thinking about the well-being of the people and our planet. Where is that conversation about the needs of our people? Where is the conversation about peace? Every time we launch these interventionist regime change wars, it is not only our veterans who pay the price for that. Every single one of us pays the price. We have spent trillions of your taxpayer dollars to pay for these wars, taking those dollars away from our communities and our people who need them right here at home. You want to see Medicare for All made into law, right? You want to see more investment in our teachers and our education systems on rebuilding our infrastructure to protect our planet. Unless we end these regime change wars, we will not have the resources we need to serve the needs of our people and our communities right here at home. As Commander-in-Chief, I will honor those who give their lives in service to our nation by ending wasteful, unnecessary wars and only sending our troops on missions that are truly worthy of their great sacrifice. I'm inspired every day by people in places like Standing Rock, where people came from all over this country, all walks of life, all different races, ethnicities, religions, people who represented and symbolized the fabric of this country and who stood courageously for life, for water. These are the people who are taking that love for each other and that love for our country and putting it in action, even if it means risking their own safety and their own well-being. We see these acts of courage around us coming from people who are not looking to have their name in a headline, people who are taking a stand and speaking the truth in their communities, in their small towns, who are gathering in Washington, who are making sure that their voices are heard. They're not asking for much. They're asking to be able to live. Unless we protect our water, there is no economy. There are no jobs. There is no life. It's as simple as that. I know who I am, I know what I stand for, and I know my purpose in life and why I'm in this fight. I've been through battles before. As long as we are focused on our purpose of service, then no matter how many arrows they throw at us, no matter how many attacks they lob at us, there's no reason to be afraid. They're attacking because they're afraid. Yeah. Right. That's what's happening. Yeah. They're afraid of being exposed. They're afraid of the truth. They're afraid of the power of the people, recognizing that we won't be blindly led or abused or cheated. So every time you see these bad news stories come out or you see these things happening, first of all, notice that it's almost never about the substance of the issue. It is almost always about name calling and cheap attacks because they can't argue on the substance. I look forward to those substantive debates. We are going to have different ideas on issues. That's what our politics should be about. But when you see those attacks come, know it's because they're scared and know that what we're doing is working.
We're spending 40% more on our Pentagon budget than we were at the height of the Iraq War.
Yeah.
That's over $200 billion more. We could send everyone to college for free and end homelessness and still have about $100 billion left over.
Yeah.
Just with the extra we're spending on the military since the height of the Iraq War. You say instead of wasting billions of dollars on regime change wars, we can invest some of that peace dividend to end homelessness across America. I can't tell you, I almost cried when I saw you tweet that, because nobody's talking about homeless people because they don't have a constituency. They're not a voting constituency. And so you're just doing that because you're an actual human being who cares?
It is our brothers and sisters and neighbors and friends all across this country who are either homeless or who are right on the brink. This is something that people wrongly think is only impacting our urban cities. It is something that is impacting our rural communities as well. We had a woman who came and testified in front of the Financial Services Committee who shared her story about she was someone who was living, you know, middle class American life, thought that never in any circumstance would she be someone who would be homeless or would need to know where a shelter is nearby. But she faced a serious medical situation that depleted her money, her reserves, and then was divorced. And she literally became one of those people that she didn't really know or understand, where she was trying to figure out, where is the nearest shelter? Where can I go? She was there to bring voice to so many people in this country who have gone through that themselves, and make sure that their voices are being heard in the halls of Congress so that we can address this urgent crisis.
Our democracy was designed so that voters could choose their politicians, not so politicians could choose their voters. Across the country, state governments have rigged electoral maps to preserve political power, putting their interests over the people that they represent. Elected officials need to be held accountable to their voters, not shielded from competitive elections. So we must ensure that all voters, Republicans, Democrats, and Independents, are fairly represented in our electoral maps. We must join hands and stand up against those who perpetuate bigotry, hatred, and violence against our brothers and sisters because of their race, religion, or sexual orientation. There is no one in our government at any level who has the right to tell any American who they should be allowed to love or who they should be allowed to marry. My record in Congress for over 6 years shows my commitment to fighting for LGBTQ equality. I serve on the Equality Caucus and recently voted for passage of the Equality Act. Maybe many people in this country can relate to the fact that I grew up in a socially conservative home, held views when I was very young that I no longer hold today. I've served with LGBTQ service members, both in training and deployed downrange. I know that they would give their life for me, and I would give my life for them. I want to bring up the issue of religion because it is one that we have seen for too long, and we continue to see being used to foment bigotry and elicit fears and suspicions in people because of someone who holds a religion that may be different from the most. We see this in politics all the time. President John F. Kennedy went through this test when he ran for president, where people questioned how his Catholic faith would drive and influence his policies.
I am not the Catholic candidate for president. I am the Democratic Party's candidate for president, who happens also to be a Catholic. Whatever issue may come before me as president, if I should be elected, I will make my decision in accordance with what my conscience tells me to be in the national interest.
I took my oath of office on the Bhagavad Gita when I was first sworn into Congress in 2012. I'm a practicing Hindu, and my spiritual practice, my relationship with God, is something that is near and dear to my heart. Whether it is Hindus, Muslims, Buddhists, Christians, atheists, whatever the path that people have chosen for their lives, it is important that every one of us stand up, call out, and condemn those who are seeking to incite bigotry based on religion and not allow them to try to use that to divide us, because that's not who we are in this country of freedom. We saw devastatingly the impact of that in Pittsburgh with the shooting at the synagogue. This is what happens when this is allowed to continue without being condemned and stopped. This is where the result ends up.
The gunman was armed with an AR-style weapon. Authorities just revealed the names of the 11 victims, ranging in age from 97 to 54. People who have been shot.
With people being shot and killed in their place of worship. We cannot allow that to happen to those who may share our faith or those who may have a different faith.
Today I may be the victim, but tomorrow it may be you. Until the whole fabric of our harmonious society is ripped apart at a time of great national peril.
So as we stand for peace abroad, we have to stand for peace and freedom here at home amongst our brothers and sisters. We must stand up. We must fight for the soul of our country. Stand up against bought and paid for politicians who kowtow to special interests, selling their votes to the highest bidder. Where instead of draining the swamp, our president has turned it into a cesspool of corruption. We must stand up against big pharma and insurance companies who extort those who are sick, who put their profits above the health and well-being of our people. We have to fight to make sure that every single American gets the quality health care that they need through Medicare for all. We must stand up against the big Wall Street banks who gamble with our money and our future. Stand up against overreaching intelligence agencies and big tech companies who take away our civil liberties, privacy, and freedoms in the name of national security and corporate greed.
WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange.
Julian Assange was arrested this morning. Julian Assange is arrested in London this morning. The WikiLeaks founder
in a computer hacking conspiracy
Assange was dragged out of the Ecuadorian embassy in London today.
Literally carried out by British authorities this morning. A hacking conspiracy by the U.S.
U.S. officials charged WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange with violating the Espionage Act on Thursday.
Charging Assange under the Espionage Act will have a serious chilling effect on our most fundamental rights of freedom of speech and freedom of the press. Every American, certainly every journalist, must strongly condemn this anti-democratic act by the Trump administration. We must stand up against private prisons who are profiting off the backs of those who are caught up in a broken criminal justice system. A system that puts people in prison for smoking marijuana while allowing corporations like Purdue Pharma, who are responsible for the opioid-related deaths of thousands of people, to walk away scot-free with their coffers full. This so-called criminal justice system, which favors the rich and powerful and punishes the poor, cannot stand.
I'm going to have to put cuffs on you.
Officers stopped the 69-year-old great-grandmother at a security checkpoint.
Let's turn around.
After discovering a small bottle of CBD oil in her purse.
The recent arrest of a grandmother for possession of CBD oil, a resin from the cannabis plant that's used to treat arthritis and other ailments, underscores the absurdity and hypocrisy of federal laws related to marijuana. So while grandma is getting arrested for possessing medicine that contains CBD oil, Americans are still being prescribed highly addictive opioids, even when a non-addictive painkiller would be enough. I've introduced a bill in Congress that would end the federal marijuana prohibition. And as president, I'll remove marijuana-related convictions from the records of otherwise law-abiding Americans. But to get to the root of the opioid crisis, Congress needs to pass my bill, the Opioid Crisis Accountability Act, that would hold pharmaceutical companies accountable for their deceptive and illegal marketing and distribution of opioid drugs. As president, I will make sure that those responsible for this opioid epidemic are held accountable. The big pharmaceutical companies that callously lie and market a drug that they know is highly addictive just to increase their profits will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
As your president, I'll end the failed war on drugs that's ruined so many people's lives, that's overcrowded our prisons and torn families apart. I'll reform our criminal justice system, end the marijuana prohibition, end cash bail, and ban private prisons. I'll crack down on the overreaching intelligence agencies and big tech monopolies who are taking away our civil liberties in the name of national security and corporate greed, and protect our constitutional right to privacy and free speech. We must stand united and stand strong against those in both parties who never tire of war. Neocons and neolibs who drag us from one regime change war to the next, and who are exacerbating the new Cold War, pushing us to the brink of nuclear war. We deserve better. Our country deserves better. Here are the steps that Donald Trump has taken to create a war with Iran. First, he tore up the Iran nuclear agreement.
I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal.
Second, he has escalated crippling sanctions against Iran.
The sanctions kicking in at midnight Sunday target Iran's oil exports, banking, and shipping, even though UN inspectors say Iran is still complying with the nuclear deal.
The United States will pursue additional sanctions, tougher than ever before.
Third, he designated Iran's military as a terrorist organization.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has announced that the U.S. is designating the Iranian Revolutionary Guard as a terror group.
Today, the United States is continuing to build its maximum pressure campaign against the Iranian regime. I am announcing our intent to designate the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, including its Quds Force, as a foreign terrorist organization.
With this terror designation, the U.S. can sanction pretty much anybody who talks to or deals with or has any business whatsoever with the IRGC.
And fourth, he continues to deploy more and more U.S. troops to the region.
Well, just moments ago, the Pentagon authorized an additional 1,000 American troops to the Middle East in response to growing concerns over Iran.
The Trump administration announced yesterday that a U.S. aircraft carrier and a bomber task force are being sent to areas closer to Iran.
Yes, there will indeed be hell to pay. Let my message today be very clear. We are watching, and we will come after you.
We've got to stop Donald Trump from starting a war with Iran. I'm asking you to join me and support my legislation, the No More Presidential Wars Act. President Trump campaigned against regime change wars when he ran for president, but now he bows to the wishes of the neocons who surround him, clamoring for regime change wars that he claimed to oppose, this time in Venezuela and in Iran. These powerful politicians dishonor the sacrifices made by every one of my brothers and sisters in uniform, their families, as they are the ones who pay the price for these wars. In fact, every American pays the price for these wars that have cost us trillions of dollars since 9/11. Every dollar that we spend on regime change wars or on the new Cold War and this nuclear arms race is a dollar coming out of our pockets. Dollars that should be used to address the very real urgent needs of our people and our communities right here at home. We must stand up. Stand up against powerful politicians from both parties who sit in their ivory towers, thinking up new wars to wage, new places for people to die. In Afghanistan right now, we're spending $4 billion of your taxpayer dollars every month. This money could be used here. When you see how many sick people who are uninsured or underinsured or aren't able to get the care they need. You see how many teachers are on strike in different communities across the country because they're getting paid pennies. You're dealing with a lack of affordable housing. You're dealing with a homeless crisis that is hitting communities across California, hitting communities in Hawaii, hitting communities urban and rural all across this country. As your president and commander-in-chief, I will end these wasteful regime change wars. course, work to end this new Cold War that we're in with ever-escalating tensions between the United States and other nuclear-armed countries like Russia and China, and end this nuclear arms race, all of which are taking trillions more of our taxpayer dollars away from where they need to be, serving our people, serving our communities, rather than spending them on these wars and weapons that only make us less safe and that cost us so dearly.
All that being said, when you are talking about the fact that you are against war and you are against our foreign policies, I get very excited and I get very hopeful and I get tearful. But I also feel very hopeless. Why I feel hopeless? Because our system, our foreign policy is built in a way that we thrive when other people fail in the other part of the world. We had Bernie Sanders and we all were so excited that maybe he will bring a change. But his own party stopped him from doing that. Tulsi, I'm all for you. And I hope that I'm going to stand on those polls and vote for you in 2020, hoping that you will. Who will make the change, who will bring the change, who will be the voice for the voiceless, who will be the person who can say that the war that we start here, the billions of dollars that we are spending on this war can go to our addicts, to the mental health, to our healthcare here in the States. People are dying of poverty. And yet people are dying of poverty in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Yemen, in Iraq, in parts of Africa, because we have started those wars. Tulsi, how are you going to fight your own party, our own Democrats? How?
Yes.
No more wars.
No
more wars.
No more wars.
No more wars.
No more wars. No more wars. No more wars. No more wars. No more wars. No more wars. Thank you for sharing your heart with all of us. You speak for so many whose voices are not being heard. You have just laid out why I'm running for president. This is not a political ambition that I have had for myself. With the obstacles that are in place and the challenges that exist, it is because of the people that you're talking about. People whose lives are being impacted, that make me work tirelessly to run for president to bring about this change. We're not naive to the challenges that lay before us, or the obstacles that are placed ahead of us, or the smear tactics that are used against us. Yes, it's coming from within our own party. The most attacks I get are not from Republicans. They're from Democrats. They're from people in the mainstream media. They are from people in the foreign policy establishment that you're talking about. People who represent the interests of the military-industrial complex. But you know what? You know what? The answer to how we overcome this, it's us. It's we the people. The stronger they come, the stronger we respond. And you know what? We don't respond. We don't respond to their dirty tactics or their hate with more hate. We respond with strength, and love and our message of peace and humanity. We cannot lose faith in the power that we hold within our own hands, our own feet, our own voices, and our hearts. It is only when we reclaim our own voices and our own power in dictating the change in this country that we need to make that we can be successful. People will get into a lot of conversations about political tactics and how do we win this race and who's going to beat Donald Trump. Bluntly, I might get in trouble for saying this, what does it matter if we beat Donald Trump if we end up with someone who will perpetuate the very same crony capitalist policies, corporate policies, and waging more of these costly wars? This is why I'm running for president. This is not a joke. This is not for fun. This is not about me. It's about all of us. It's about our future. Making sure that we have one. I ask for all of your support. I ask you to stand shoulder to shoulder with me in this movement for peace abroad, peace at home, so that we can fight for that path towards a bright future with opportunity and justice, equality, and respect for all. Thank you so much for coming out, everybody. Aloha. Thank you.